The wind tore through the forest like a living blade, carrying with it the sharp scent of rain and wet earth. Moonlight struggled to pierce the thick mist curling around the gnarled trees, and every step she took threatened to betray her presence to the shadows lurking behind the trunks. She stumbled over exposed roots, her hands clawing at the slick ground, clutching her swollen belly as if her life and her child's depended on it, because they did. Her breath came in ragged gasps, each one painful, each one loud enough to feel as though it might announce her location to the hunters she'd fled. Behind her, the distant cries of pursuit echoed off the cliffs, a chorus of betrayal she couldn't escape. Her mind spun with disbelief, anger, and a raw, aching hurt that burned hotter than the storm above. How could anyone betray me like this? Her legs shook with exhaustion, and a fresh wave of pain radiated through her abdomen. The child within her moved, a tiny, defiant pulse of life, reminding her that she wasn't entirely powerless. She was more than the fear, more than the shame her former pack had heaped upon her. And yet, she had no idea how to harness the fire that now stirred inside her, a heat that flickered like silver flame along her spine and made her skin tingle with a power she couldn't yet name. Before she could fall completely into despair, she muttered to herself, almost as if she was summoning courage from the void. Before we continue, I want to prove my mom wrong. She said I can't hit 1,000 subscribers, and my friends said I am wasting my time. So please, subscribe. Well, let's continue. The words were absurd in the face of death, and yet saying them aloud steadied her racing heart. A shadow moved through the fog. She froze. Her pulse slammed against her ribs like a drum of warning. The figure wasn't human. Its presence was immense, commanding, a predator's dominance wrapped in the aura of a guardian. Golden eyes glimmered through the mist, calculating, watchful. Her instinct screamed to run, but something in the gaze held her frozen. It was as if he already knew her, as if he'd been watching, waiting, for reasons she couldn't yet fathom. He stepped closer, the mist parting around him. The ground seemed to quake beneath his presence, and even the storm above quieted, as though nature itself was holding its breath. She could feel the tension in the air, a mixture of fear and something else, something warmer, sharper, that set her pulse racing. She had been betrayed once, left to the mercy of those who called her cursed, abandoned while carrying the proof of love turned poison. She would not trust easily, and yet she could not look away. The Alpha did not speak at first. He simply studied her, as though weighing her heart, her soul. He moved with a quiet power, not arrogance, but an effortless strength that both frightened and intrigued her. Every inch of him exuded danger, yes, but also the faintest trace of understanding. He reached for her without touching her, his hand a promise of protection, or perhaps a warning of the storm to come. Her memories struck like lightning in her mind. Betrayal, rejection, the icy words of the pack elders telling her she was too dangerous to remain, that her gift was a curse. She remembered the night she first felt the silver flame within her, the heat in her chest that she had thought was a curse, but now felt like a heartbeat of destiny. And she remembered him, or at least what she thought he might represent, a chance that not all men, not all wolves would leave her broken. He finally spoke, a voice low and steady, yet carrying an edge that made her spine prickle. You shouldn't be out here alone. She swallowed a gasp. How does he know? She wondered, suspicion clawing at her. But there was no malice, only a tension she couldn't name. He was not a perfect hero, she realized. He carried his own scars, hidden behind that golden gaze. He didn't reach to pull her into safety. He simply stood, waiting, letting her make the first choice. And against every instinct screaming at her to flee, she hesitated. Lightning flashed, illuminating the forest in jagged silver, and she saw the glint of claws on him, the subtle shift of muscle beneath fur. A shiver of awe and fear ran through her. I am not alone, and yet I may be more alone than ever. Later, after the first cautious trust had begun, they arrived at a glade where moonlight poured like liquid silver. The air was thick with magic, ancient and unyielding. Stones etched with glowing runes formed a circle around a small, stagnant pool. As she approached, her bare feet brushing wet moss, she felt it, a pull deep in her bones, like a heartbeat of the world itself. Her pulse matched the rhythm of something far older than her pain, far older than betrayal. Visions flickered at the edges of her mind. A child of the flame, a mark of destiny, a power that could save or destroy. She stumbled back, fear and awe clashing violently inside her. How could she, a mother abandoned, a woman rejected, be the center of something so immense? The Alpha followed her silently, his presence a shield without touch. He said nothing. He simply let her feel the truth, raw and frightening. And though she didn't yet trust him fully, she realized that for the first time since the betrayal, she wasn't entirely alone. Their quiet moment was shattered by a scream, a raw, violent cry from the forest beyond. Claws scraped rocks, teeth glinted in the shadows. Rivals, hunters, shadow beasts, whatever had been waiting for this moment had found her. She drew a shaky breath, instinct taking over. Fire ignited along her spine, silver flame licking her skin. She could feel the child's heartbeat echoing her own, urging her to survive. The Alpha was at her side, instantly, a shield of muscle and power, and yet he couldn't fight them all. Blows landed, claws raking, teeth snapping, and the world seemed to tilt around her. She felt the sting of betrayal all over again, not his, but the pack, the world, those who had deemed her too dangerous, too unpredictable. And still, in the chaos, there was a strange exhilaration. She was alive. She was more than they thought. She could fight, even if she didn't yet know how fully. As the last shadow lunged, she vanished into the forest, heart hammering, breath ragged, body trembling, but alive. And somewhere behind her, the Alpha stood, watching, waiting, knowing she needed to run this first step alone. Hours later, when they found a hidden cave to shelter from the storm, firelight flickering against wet stone walls, she allowed herself a moment of fragile relief. He tended her injuries in silence, their eyes meeting in a tension-filled gaze that spoke volumes neither dared to voice. The air between them was thick with unspoken questions. Can I trust him? Will he betray me too? And yet, as the storm raged outside and shadows danced on the walls, she felt something stir, a tentative spark of hope. Not just for survival, not just for vengeance, but for something that felt dangerously like connection. He leaned close, a hand hovering near hers, letting the warmth of his presence speak what words could not. I see you, all of you. Her breath caught. She almost believed him. Almost. The cave was silent, save for the occasional drip of water from the stone ceiling and the crackle of the small fire they had managed to light. Outside, the storm raged like the heartbeat of a world intent on punishing her. She watched the shadows flicker, twisting along the walls, reflecting the turmoil in her mind. Every thrum of fear and every pulse of adrenaline reminded her of the betrayal that had brought her here. Even now, even in the quiet, she could feel the sting of her mate's deceit. He had sold her and her child. Whispered lies, false promises, and the cruel certainty of abandonment had shaped the woman she had become. Wary, cautious, hardened, but not broken. Not entirely. Somewhere in the shattered pieces of her heart, the flicker of survival remained bright. The Alpha, silent and watchful, moved with careful precision. His hands were gentle as he applied ointments to her cuts, every movement deliberate, measured, protective. His golden eyes never left her face, scanning for fear, for weakness, for any trace of the danger that haunted her. She felt the heat of his gaze on her skin, a sensation both unnerving and strangely comforting. It was here, in this fragile peace, that memories rose unbidden. The nights spent hiding from pack elders, the sharp sting of rejection, the whispers that branded her too dangerous, too wild, too cursed. And beneath them all, the silver flame within, coiling and twisting, yearning for release. She had felt it first when she had been alone, powerless, carrying life that had no protector. Now she felt it respond to him, not as a weapon, but as an extension of her heart, her spirit, her will to survive. But the world outside the cave would not allow her respite. Word of her survival travelled faster than fire in dry grass. Rival packs, shadow beasts, dissenters from the Alpha's own domain began to converge. Their motives were simple: destroy the girl who should have been discarded, control the power she carried, and cement their dominance. The first attack came like a scream in the night. Figures leapt from the darkness, claws raking, teeth snapping, shadows moving faster than sight could follow. She felt the sting of a graze along her arm and the pull of panic like a predator at her heels. Instinct screamed for her to flee, yet the silver flames surged, a hot pulse of power, whispering of what she could become. The Alpha was beside her in an instant. He moved like liquid steel, a shield against the chaos. His claws glinting in the firelight, his eyes molten gold. And yet, despite his power, he could not be everywhere at once. She realized with a jolt that she must embrace her own strength, or perish. A surge of anger, raw and incandescent, rose from the depths of her being. Betrayal had sharpened her, rejection had tempered her, and now desperation fused with newfound power to ignite something ancient, something uncontrollable. The silver flame bloomed along her veins, illuminating the cave with a soft, deadly light. She felt it, a voice in her mind, the whisper of ancestors, telling her she was not a victim. She was a force. Rival shifters fell back at the brilliance, recoiling, uncertain, terrified. And for the first time, she didn't run. She stood, trembling but defiant. A mother, a survivor, a woman claiming her power. The fight ebbed, the attackers retreating into the darkness, but the victory was fleeting. The Alpha studied her, concern mingled with awe. She met his gaze, raw vulnerability flashing between them. "I am not your sacrifice," she whispered, more to herself than to him. He nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of the fire he had seen, the woman he could not ignore. Their connection deepened, a bond forged not by trust alone, but by shared survival, by the recognition of strength in the other. Days passed, though time felt suspended in the aftermath of the battle. In hidden groves and quiet glades, they explored this fragile alliance. He revealed scars etched deep into his soul, wounds from betrayals she could only imagine. She shared glimpses of her own past, the pain of abandonment, the lingering ache of a mate's treachery. Night after night, the moon watched them, a silent witness to whispered confessions and glances that lingered too long. Their hearts moved in quiet synchrony, caught between desire and fear, longing and hesitation. Every brush of skin, every shared look, stoked a fire neither fully understood. And then, the world tore open once more. The betrayal arrived in the form of a council convened in shadow. Faces she had once trusted, elders who had condemned her, peers who had envied her, all gathered with eyes gleaming with accusation. "She carries power that will destroy us," one hissed. "She is cursed. She cannot be allowed to survive," another declared. Her heart clenched. The words cut as sharply as any claw. She felt the baby shift inside her, a tiny heartbeat echoing her own fear and fury. The Alpha's presence was beside her. Steadfast, but even his golden gaze could not erase the venom of those who once called her sister, friend, packmate. They turned on her, their intentions clear. The world she had been forced to flee had found her, and now every betrayal she had endured converged in this moment. Rage flared. Power surged. Silver flame erupted, painting the council hall in brilliant, searing light. Shadows twisted, stones trembled. The air thrummed with the force of her awakening. She did not run. She did not plead. She stood, trembling but unbroken, her power claiming her, demanding recognition. The Alpha, his own golden aura flaring, moved to her side, unflinching. He didn't question her power, didn't recoil in fear. Instead, he offered his strength, his loyalty, his presence. Together they faced the opposition, two forces aligned in fire and blood. Hearts pounding in a rhythm only they could understand. And still, even in the heat of confrontation, their eyes met. There was unspoken understanding. This was more than survival. This was recognition, respect. Something deeper, something dangerous, something undeniable. Hours later, when the dust settled and silence returned like a cautious predator, she withdrew to a quiet glade, rain-soaked earth beneath her, moonlight washing over her like a baptism. The Alpha followed without question, settling beside her. They shared no words. Words were unnecessary. She lifted trembling hands, tracing the faint glow of silver flame along her veins, a reminder of the power that had chosen her, and of the destiny that could not be ignored. "Will you trust me?" he whispered finally, voice low, raw. She hesitated, every memory of betrayal screaming within her, and yet, she nodded. The night air shimmered around them, heavy with magic and unspoken promises. In that moment she realized something she had not dared to hope. She was not alone. She had never truly been alone. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the world had not yet written her end. The fire between them was quiet now, but it burned with potential. The storm outside had passed, leaving a trembling calm, a fragile hope that would be tested, shattered, and reforged in the hours to come. The forest had gone silent, but the stillness was heavy, pregnant with anticipation. Every leaf, every branch seemed to hold its breath. She moved cautiously, every step measured. Every heartbeat a drum counting down to the confrontation she had been fleeing and unknowingly seeking since betrayal had cast her into the storm. The moon had risen high, silver light cutting through the darkness like a blade. Her silver flame pulsed beneath her skin, hot and alive, trembling with energy she had only begun to understand. It was no longer a flicker of fear, it was a roaring fire of power, of defiance, of destiny. Her child stirred inside her, and she felt a strange kinship with the life within her, a force as vital, as relentless, as unforgiving as her own. The alpha was beside her, a constant shadow, golden eyes glowing like molten gold. His presence was grounding, yet it carried a weight that made her pulse hammer. He had not promised her safety, had not made idle declarations. Instead, he had walked with her through storms, fought beside her, and understood the delicate thread of survival and power she carried. Suddenly, movement. From the edges of the clearing, dark shapes emerged, figures cloaked in malice and authority. The council that had denounced her, rival alphas, and the shadow beasts that had hunted her, drawn like moths to the heat of her silver flame. Their eyes glinted with fear and hatred. Some whispered her name as a curse, others as a threat, but all knew one thing. She had grown beyond them, and she faced them trembling yet unbroken. "I am not your sacrifice," she said again, louder this time, her voice carrying across the trees. The silver flame responded, brightening, coiling around her like serpents of light. "I am my own power. I am my own destiny. And I will not bow." The alpha stepped forward, placing himself between her and the advancing threat. His claws dug into the soil, his muscles coiling with a predator's precision. He was fierce, unstoppable, but it was not his fire that would win this battle. It was hers. The first shadow lunged. The silver flame erupted, wrapping around the figure in a blinding light. He screamed, a sound that echoed through the forest, and was thrown back as if repelled by a force older than the pack itself. She could feel it. The ancestral power flowing through her, a voice whispering commands, teaching, urging, reminding her who she truly was. Another came, snarling, teeth bared. Her breath came fast, uneven, but the flame answered her fear with strength. Claws of light tore through the shadows, scattering them like leaves in a gale. Every attack she had suffered, every betrayal, every whispered word of doubt and rejection fueled the fire. She was not weak. She was not cursed. She was unstoppable. The alpha fought beside her, his own power flaring to meet the chaos. Together they were a storm of gold and silver, light and fire, flesh and magic. And yet, it was not mere combat. It was a dance, a connection that transcended words. Every glance, every shared motion spoke of trust forged in fire, hearts intertwined by battle and survival. And then she saw him. The true villain, the one who had orchestrated her sale, her abandonment, the one who had wanted her broken and powerless. He stepped forward, eyes wide with disbelief and greed. You were nothing," he spat. The silver flame coiled around her like a crown, illuminating her face with brilliance. She did not hesitate. "I am everything," she said. The world seemed to bend around her words. The forest trembled, the stones cracked, and the night itself shivered. Silver light burst forth, ancient power awakening, tracing the lines of her destiny. The villain tried to strike, but her aura surged like a tidal wave, throwing him back, the ground rupturing under the force. The Alpha reached for her, hand clasping hers, and she felt an unbreakable bond lock them together. This was not only survival, this was triumph, this was recognition. The universe, the prophecy, and the dragon spirits that whispered in the winds had seen her worth. And now, the world would know it too. Hours passed, or perhaps only moments, but the battle ended. The shadows had scattered, the council had fled, and the forest, trembling and scarred, held only the two of them. Her breathing slowed, her heart pounding with exhaustion, with awe, with the raw thrill of power realized. The Alpha pulled her close. She rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady pulse of life and strength beneath his fur. They said nothing. Words were unnecessary. Their bond had been forged in fire, tempered in betrayal, and strengthened in victory. Yet even in this calm, the night whispered warnings. The ground quaked beneath them. Shadows shifted at the edges of the glade. A voice low and resonant murmured from the darkness. She is not the only one. Or perhaps the true Alpha has not yet risen. She lifted her chin, silver flame still flickering faintly along her veins. Her golden-eyed mate at her side, child alive within her, destiny unbroken, she smiled a sharp, defiant curve of lips that said to the world, I am here. I am more than they could ever imagine. And this is only the beginning. The wind carried the scent of rain, of blood, of magic. The moon hung like a sentinel above, witnessing the rise of the girl who had been sold, abandoned, doubted, and yet had claimed her worth, her power, her destiny. Would you have chosen her? The night whispered, or feared her too? And as the forest settled, a final message rang clear. If this story lit something inside you, subscribe to King Chronicles, because here we tell tales that burn. Silver light faded into the dawn. The Alpha and the mother walked forward, child cradled in her arms, hearts bound in fire and fate. Behind them, the world trembled, knowing that this was not an ending. It was a beginning. The prophecy had awakened. The Dragon Lord had seen her worth, and nothing would ever be the same.